Hello, hi, I'm Nick Burgess. I'm a quant analyst, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to connect Python to Interactive Brokers trader account. So this is so that we can connect Python trading strategies to a live trading environment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some slides on how to set up and and to connect to the IB broker trading platform. And then I'm actually going to give you a live example at the end as well. There'll be future sessions as well on how to get account information, how to get your balances, positions, market data, historical and live market data, and also how to manage orders, how to place orders, modify, cancel, and to check execution status. We're going to go through all of that. So this is the first part of that series where we're going to talk about connections, how to make a connection from how to connect your Python code to the IB broker trading platform. So I'm going to share my screen and let's go. Okay, here we are. So I'm going to go through a set of slides, Interactive Brokers, Python API, and it's a guide for downloading data, managing accounts, and for trading for us. So we have a Python trading strategy, and we want to execute that or backtest that in using the IB broker trading account. And this will show you how to get on with that, how to sort of set up, how to connect, and to do all these things. So let's go. So So with the IB API, um, Python API, what we can do is we can get our account information, we can get balances, we can get our trading positions, we can get market data, which is historical or real time. We can manage our orders. We can check execution details. We can place an order. We can modify orders, cancel, track our fills, track our executions, all of that from the Python API. And we can also do a lot more. So I'm just sort of starting you off here. So first thing we need to do is obviously we need to set up our environment. So we will need an IB account. We need to enable our API access, and we will need to install the Trader Workstation TWS or IB Gateway. So TWS, the Trader Workstation, is a very visual sort of platform which shows you everything about where you can actually sort of do a lot of things manually, and the IB Gateway is more for sort of server connections. Now, we also need a Python environment set up, so we need to install Python 3.7 or above. We need to install the IB API Python package, which is a pip install of IB API, and you can get the latest API if you need to upgrade or for the latest features. You can do that by downloading the latest API from the Interactive Brokers GitHub page. All of this information will be in the slides sort of below this video, and there'll be a lot more resources available there as well. Right. So this is what the Trader Workstation looks like. So this is quite a retro sort of fairly sort of has an older sort of view of the trading platform. I just want to make you aware that there is a desktop API. There is a desktop version for Trader Workstation, and it's very modern, very cool looking. I'm very comfortable using the TWS, but the desktop's also pretty awesome, and they have all the same functionality. The Trader Workstation here, we come into here for to configure our API connection. And very important to note up here on the top right, there's like a cog icon. If you click on that, you'll get to the settings page where you can sort of then configure API connections. You can also get to the same page through File Global Configuration. That will take you to the same place. And the other thing to be aware of then is this data text here at the top right. If you click on that, you'll be able to see all your data connections and any API connections that you make as well from a server or locally. In terms of getting familiar with the Trader Workstation layout, so this is the generic sort of default layout that you get when you sort of install. You'll have a chart in the top left. You'll be able to place orders here in this order entry page. Any pending orders you'll see here in the order page, any executed orders will be on your trades. You've got some news here at the bottom as well. And you've got quite a lot of tabs here, so you can have as many of these pages. There's a lot of configuration you can do. This is just the default sort of layout. So this is what the TWS platform looks like when you install for the first time. And in red, you can see when there's a big red bar at the top, that means you're looking at the simulated sort of paper account, not the live trading. Now, when you do click on those settings, you then sort of click on the API page here, and you'll get these settings. And there's one other thing to be aware of on the lock and exit sort of tab here. Near the top there, you'll see there's a timeout feature. So if your TWS is inactive for say 30 minutes, it will actually time out and close your API. And then there's a tick box sort of at the top in this lock and exit to say never time out and never sort of um, never close any sort of socket connections if your TWS becomes inactive for 30 minutes, say. So make sure you tick that to never time out to see your Python connections stay active. Now, in your API settings, I've highlighted in red the main things to be aware of for API connections. You need to make sure you've got socket clients enabled, so you tick this box. If you want to have read-only API connections, you tick this one too. That means you read data from the TWS platform, but you can't place or write anything to the API. So that basically means if you tick this, you won't be able to place any orders. So we typically leave it unticked, but if you want to sort of make sure you don't place any trades, then you leave it unticked. And you tick it if you just yeah, you tick it if you want to read only, so if you don't want to place trades. So we typically leave this unticked so you can place your trades. I'll talk about socket port last. So then in terms of connections, if you're connecting from your local PC to a TWS from your local PC, you tick this box, and then you don't allow any remote connections from other PCs to your TWS platform. If you want to connect from a server and you want to have sort of two PCs talk to each other, you want to have your TWS on one PC and your server code on another, then you need to sort of specify trusted IPs here. So you untick the local host only, and then you press create and you specify all the IPs you want to allow to connect to your TWS platform. Now, the last thing to mention is the socket port. This is very, very important. So the default configurations are 7497 is your simulation account. That's the port number for that. 7496 is your live trading account. So one thing that can happen with the trader workstation is you want to make sure that these port numbers are correct. They can be anything that you want them to be. But the default should be 9497 for simulation account, and then for your live account, 9496. And just make sure when you log in that these port numbers are there and that they're correct. Otherwise, when you're connecting from Python, you might be wanting to place a live trade and go to your simulation account, or you might be testing something and you start executing live trades, and you don't want that. Please make sure your socket ports have the right numbers in them. So log into TWS, go into the simulation side, make sure that's 7497, go into the live, log in again on the live account, make sure that's 7496, make sure they're different. Okay, so we do that just for safety. Now, connection framework. So we can connect through TWS, or we can connect through IB Gateway. IB Gateway is more for server connections. There's no visuals there. It's just you just see connections. TWS you can manually intervene and sort of see what's happening. So this is a lot more visual to work with TWS, and you make a TCP socket connection. So the socket ports here we've already mentioned that for TWS is 7496 is for live connections, 7497 for simulated connections for testing, and then for the gateway connections, it's 4001 and 4002. So just I put this here just to help you, just so we can remember. Now, the way that when we're connecting our Python code to TWS or to IB Gateway for live trading or simulated trading, there's two classes that we work with. We have EC client. eClient is for sending messages to TWS, and eWrapper receives callbacks, receives messages, and processes those from TWS. So these have lots of functionality within them that we can just use natively, but you do have to inherit eClient and eWrapper. Those are the two main classes that you need to work with. Now, the IB Broker API, it's event-driven and asynchronous, and that means that requests are non-blocking and responses come via callbacks. So what that means is you send a request to the for information or to place a trade with to TWS, and then a response may not be immediate. It'll just come back as a message whenever it's ready. So if you say place a trade or execute this order, and it takes 15 minutes, you get a request. You get a reply in 15 minutes. And there's no block. It's not going to wait. We'll be listening for responses in the background, and we'll capture those responses as and when they come back. And some things come back immediately, and some things will come back a little bit later. So that requires a different way of thinking about and how to run your code. And the common patterns would be you can run your API client as a separate thread or an event loop. You could have it in loop, or you can run it as a thread. Most people work with threads. And you use synchronization methods and flags and events to wait for data and to capture that data when those data messages when they come back. So So this requires a non-blocking programming mindset. So you send a request, to TWS, you get a response back at some point, but it may not be immediate. And so you just need to think of how am I going to capture that information when it comes back, and sort of what kind of flags and events do you want to sort of capture from messages that come back to you. Right. Now, in terms of connection code, in terms of getting started, so this a Jupyter notebook with an example, and I'm going to show you this live in a couple of seconds. So we will import the eClient and eWrapper, and from the IB API, we'll import threading and time functionality just to help us for our own utilities. And a basic class might look like this. You create a class with a name of your choice, IB app, I've called it here. I'm inheriting eWrapper and eClient, and I initialize eClient like this, standard code, excuse me. And we check for, and one thing that you typically see, there is sort of connection code where you can just say, where you can ask directly, do I have a connection? But what's really common is that whenever there is a connection made with IB Broker or TWS, uh, we're always given the next valid ID. This is a method that's always called. And so if you have a next valid ID, then you definitely have a connection, because this is always called 100% of the time. And so rather than checking for connections, people do normally just ask for the next valid ID. And what we've put down here is we've overwritten this next valid ID method, which is fine. We said ask it to pause for 1 second and print this message that I'm connected and to give us the next order ID. And so this is a very common way of checking for a connection. And in terms of the implement, so this is my class implementation where I implement these two helper classes from the IB API, and these are full of the eWrapper and eClient. They have lots of logic that we can then just use. And so here we go. This is to make a connection. So I create an instance of my class IB app, and now I can call the connect method. So you do app.connect. You need to provide the host, port, and client ID. You can say local host, or you can sort of provide the IP address for your local host, which is 127.0.0.1. It's always that number. The port, then, this is where you specify whether you're connecting to your live trading or to your simulation account. This is my simulation account 9497. We've mentioned the numbers already. And the client ID is a unique number of your choice, just so you can sort of verify that this connection is yours and not coming from somewhere else. Then that will make a connection. And at that point, you can just disconnect. But if you want to then start listening for messages coming back from IB API, then we start this app run. App run is to start listening for messages coming back. It's not essential for a connection, but we always need to use this if we're going to do anything more than connect. So we start off the thread here, threading.thread. Target is app.run. So we're going to call the app run function. We don't need the round brackets after run. That will then call the run method, and that will then start listening for messages. If you call app.run directly, like what we've done here with app.connect, that will then go into an indefinite loop where it'll just listen forever and it'll never get to the next line of code. So we run it as a thread in the background instead, so that we can get on with other things. Because of the asynchronous nature of things. And then the running will be listening for responses coming back from eWrapper, and that'll be run in the background so that you can continue to do other things. Then we do thread.start, that triggers the app.run, and then you start getting back the connection messages, which you see here, and then you can see you're connected with the next order ID. Now, one thing that IB API does that whenever you print in sort of console output, it will normally write error in front. So that just really should say something like console output. So that's not an error. That's the standard response. So anything coming to the screen typically says error in front of it. So it doesn't mean there's an error. You just read what the message is, and in this case, it's made connections to all of these different farms and databases. So the connection has been made, and then the last thing to do then is disconnect. Now, when you made the connection, you'll then see, if you click on the data button in the Trader Workstation platform, you'll then sort of see here in the API connections, listening on your simulation account 7497, you see that we have a local connection, 127.0.0.1. So obviously it's a local connection with client ID 123, and that's you can see that you've got a connection to um, trader workstation. And at this point now, you can read market data, you can check your balances, you can place orders, you have a connection. You can then proceed to sort of work on the trader workstation. So that's how to make a connection. We're also going to talk about market data, how to request market data, how to get account information, how to place orders. That will come in the next in part 2 of the video, which is right after this. And I just want to make you aware of resources that you can access here. So there's quite a lot of documentation available on the Interactive website. So the documentation, formal documentation is here, which will tell you all the methods and all the classes and everything you can do. Algo Trading 101 gives you a really good overview of how to get started. And then we have video classes as well from IB Broker where we did take you through all the different features and how to set up from start to very advanced orders as well. So you have everything there in video series. Now, if you want then to just I'll talk about this slide at the end, actually, but just because I just want to give you some closing remarks and some tips on how to best manage things. I'm going to show you the live connection here now. So we're going to show how to make this connection, and then we'll finish on the tips and closing remarks. So I'm going to show you the TWS workstation, sort of a live simulation account. So this is my simulation account running. You can see, tell from the red banner, this is a simulation account. And then I'll get some Jupyter Python code, which I'm running in a Jupyter notebook. And the way this works, exactly like what we saw on the PowerPoint slides, is that I'm going to implement the eClient and eWrapper. I'm going to import those classes. I'm also going to import threading and time functionality from Python. That's done. Then I'm going to implement the basic code class. You can see I've called it IB app. I initialize eClient, and I've overwritten the next valid ID method. So when it runs the next valid ID method, it's going to print out a message of my choice. So in this case, I've said, look, pause 1 second, and then print the message I'm connected with the next order ID. This next valid ID is always it's one of the very first things it does when it makes a connection. So it will never come into here if it hasn't made a connection. So I'm going to run that class. So that class has been implemented now. I'm going to create an instance of that class called app. I'm going to make a connection with client ID 123, and then I'm also then going to start listening for callback. So I'm going to run the app.run method as a thread in the background, and that will then listen for messages coming from TWS. It's not essential for a connection, but I'll just show you how to run that. If you run app.run on its own, you will actually be in an indefinite loop, and you'll actually have to sort of kill your code or restart your kernel. And then here we'll disconnect. So let's do that, right? So I'll make a connection. That's actually got these messages back. They have made a connection. It's told us what the next order ID is, which is number 1. Now, if you want to sort of confirm that from the TWS platform, you click on the data button here, the top right. It's in green. And then you get this pop up, and you can sort of then see the API connections for 7497. You can see I've got a local connection, 127001, and the client ID is 123, and you see status accepted. So I'm connected. Now, when I disconnect, I do thread join. That just means terminate this thread, but don't continue until it's finished. So that's just a nice clean way of disconnecting. And press disconnect. You can see I'm disconnected here on the left, and my connections are now disconnected. One thing to sort of mention, if for any reason there's some random error message that hasn't been managed well, that sometimes you can have old client IDs that just sort of hang, and they're dead. You can have stale connections. And if you have a problem with a connection, or if you've got a stale connection, what you do is that you kill the session and restart it. And then you make a new connection with the same client ID and disconnect that, and that will kill old IDs. If you've got lots and lots of client IDs that you want to kill, so you've got many connections that they're all stale and you want to just clear them all out, if you go back into what you can do is if you go back into your settings, which you can get, so you can do file global configuration, or you can click on the cog. If you go back in settings, if you untick the socket clients, it will kill all API connections, and then you press apply, and then if you re-enable, that will sort of clear out every connection that's been made. If you want to do the brute force approach and kill all IDs, you can just disable the API connections and re-enable. If you just got one ID that's stale and you just sort of want to disconnect it, just rerun your code, stop your code, rerun it again, restart it with using the client ID, you want to disconnect, and that will sort of make a new connection and disconnect it, and they will kill off the old ID. So just rerun the code again with the same with the old client ID. So I'll give you an example here. I'll give you another example to see you can sort of see how it's working. Um, you can make as many connections as you like. So if I want to make one with client ID 1234566, I'll run that. Oops, excuse me. Shift enter. You see I've got a connection 1234566, and then if I do app disconnect, it will disconnect the last connection. Now, if you make 3 or 4 connections, and then you do disconnect, it will only disconnect the last one, and then you'll have to go back and make a new connection with all the old client IDs and disconnect them one by one, which is quite annoying. So we don't typically make multiple connections, but just making you aware of some of the nuances. Right, so that's how we made a connection. I'm going to jump back to the PowerPoint slides just to sort of make some concluding remarks on this section. So in this section of the video, um, just want to make you aware of some closing remarks. Um, Whenever you're doing things, please first try on a simulation account. Don't do this in the live environment. You'll still get the reasonable data from your simulation account, and all functionality is pretty much the same. Please do start small and do plenty of testing before placing any real orders. Just do everything you can to protect yourself. If you're looking, then in terms of sort of algo trading and quant research, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. I post a lot on algo trading and quant research. I also have a newsletter, a weekly newsletter, which is free, and I give you sort of weekly updates as well. And please do follow me on LinkedIn should you want to sort of see more on algo trading and quant research. I post quite actively there. Please subscribe to my channel, and thank you so much for your time. On the next video, we're going to look at account management, how to get your balances, how to get your positions. We're going to look at market data, and then following that, we're going to look at order management, how to place, execute, and modify and cancel orders. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe to my channel, and thank you very much.